Hey everybody, so I felt it was time to do another Ascension update because things are certainly hotting up here on planet Earth. Um, and I was awoken this morning in those dawn energies when the electromagnetic grid of the Earth has expanded, which is a time when I'm sure a lot of you will be receiving intuitive downloads, insights. And the message that I received this morning was the image of the serpentine goddess of Kundalini, Lilith, offering the apple. And, the message was what got us into this is what's going to get us out of this. And what I understand that to mean is that the fall into separation that occurred that took us from being the one unified consciousness in the quantum field to experiencing ourselves as separate from the divine. This was through us becoming aware of ourselves in our own right. In other words, we went from being part of a group mind to individuating. And there are three stages to evolution. The first stage is when we are identified with the group mind. So whether that's our family's belief system or that of our community, our church, or our culture. And then, often in our teenage years, we individuate. This is the second stage of evolution. So we go from being largely unconscious, operating by rote, just doing what it is we think is normal because that's what's been modeled for us. And we start to make our own decisions based on what we feel to do. So the locus of reality shifts from being external, what is everyone else doing, what's normal, to an internal locus of reality where we say, okay, what feels like the right thing for me to do? And this second stage of evolution is what we see now at a fever pitch, particularly in the Western culture. This is a time where people are highly individuated. So, it's all about me and not necessarily thinking about other. And this is why we're seeing extreme polarization, division, separation, and conflict. And this is the end game of the Piscean age, the 2,000-year age of Pisces, which the emblem for that is two fish swimming in opposite directions. And our lesson as a collective was duality. Okay, the height of duality is fascism, and we experienced that as a collective when Pluto was out of bounds in the late 30s and early 40s. Now, Pluto, for the new moon we just had, was, forming a square with Mars. So things are really becoming quite volatile. But the good thing about that is it's bringing things to a head. It's creating change. And we entered the transition phase of the Great Rebirth in 2020, but now things are getting very intense. So it's very important that you have a practice, just like a birthing mother would need to keep a focus, such as rubbing a birthing stone or focusing on the breath. Yeah, we need to have a practice in order to ride the waves of intensity. And these are contractions of the group mind into fear. Now, at the time of filming this on the 29th of April, that's Morocco time, there was an announcement put out that Spain, Portugal, and the southwest of France experienced an infrastructure freeze of electro communications, Wi-Fi. This, affected metro trains, airports, supermarkets, and so on. So this is a sign of things to come, in that the thinning of the electromagnetic grid of the Earth is allowing for more plasma to come in. That's the light of the sun. And I spoke about this in the last Ascension update. So this plasma, this is the manna that was spoken about in the Bible. It is food for the soul, okay? Light. Just like, when you're looking for an apartment, ideally you want to find one like this, which has lots of natural light, because the more light we have, the more light-hearted we are. If we're in a dark environment, such as during, long winters where there's an overcast blanket of clouds blocking out the sun's light, then people are more prone to seasonal affective disorder, or SADS as it's known. But it's, that there's not as much light. We're like our plant brothers and sisters, we need light. In fact, the mitochondria in our cells needs light for the health of our entire system. So interesting, because just this week, the UK government has announced that they are undertaking officially a program valued at $50 million. I don't know if that's pounds actually, to dim the light of the sun. Now, this is, an attempt to circumvent what's known as global warming. But to take any intervention, man-made intervention, to stop the light of the sun, I see as the ultimate hubris. Hubris being, the arrogance that is the downfall of the hero or the empire. So what do I mean by that? Well, nature is our the only thing that has any real power over us. Okay, those of you that have followed me for a while will know that the cycles of the solar, the lunar, the seasonal, and the planetary shifts are what directly impact us and initiate us to evolve, to mature. And this is something that I've taught for many years. So the idea of blocking out or trying to dim the light of the sun just goes to show, that road to hell paved with good intentions. Those who are rationally, materially dominant, i.e. solar plexus dominant, are trying to solve problems, but from the limitations of that 10% part of our mind, without being able to see the quantum, the big, big picture. And all of the so-called issues that are facing us right now are going to be resolved. In fact, they're going to be resolved far more gracefully, far more efficiently, and far more imminently than what a lot of people could even conceive or imagine. So I spoke about that in my last video, the solar event that we are anticipating. And this will shift the collective consciousness out of the solar plexus, out of the mind, which is where we have division, where we have separation. So coming back to that message that I received at dawn this morning. So the goddess of Kundalini, and Kundalini is that serpentine energy which travels up the meridians of light within our spinal cord. And it's usually a mystic initiation that activates that energy, also known as Shakti, or the energy of the goddess. And this energy was repressed by organized religion because they didn't want the people to awaken their consciousness. And so we've been kept in this sort of stupefied state. It's been proven in medical studies that fluoride, which was added to the global water supply, dumbs us down. It has an impact on the IQ, and that's now been verified in medical studies. Robert Kennedy was speaking about that publicly recently in a hearing. So despite all of that, we are still on track. We are still evolving, and we are still getting ready for the most incredible rebirth of human consciousness. This is a party that we all put our hands up for. So while it's, those dark times, the darkest before the dawn, it's a very exciting time to be on the planet. So we really need to take an approach like as if we were birthing a baby, instead of focusing on what it is that we're giving up or what it is that's ending or losing, i.e., the maiden phase, focus on what it is we're birthing. And we are birthing literally the dawning of a golden age that will last 2,000 years. So, how do we make the shift? How do we prepare ourselves for this solar event? Well, what became apparent to me this week was we need to have a showdown with our own personal nemesis, with the one issue that is keeping us in a state of separation. And for me, the form that took was I broke my toe. Like shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. How did I break my toe? Well, where I'm staying, I have a direct view of the watchtower. I'm going to see if I can show it to you on the screen. So that is like the steeple of a church, but it's a mosque. Now, in the ancient days, when the goddess was worshipped in this land, that was the office of the Magdalene. Her name meant watchtower. She who watched over the soul of the collective. And my knowing is that as someone who had served as a Magdalene more than once, those were offices that I inhabited. And so I would, speak my words and my chants from the bell tower, so to speak. And that was then appropriated. So here in Morocco, the imam gets on a very loud loudspeaker 5 times a day, and he does a sermon and a call to prayer. Now, while I've heard some beautiful calls to prayer, particularly when I was in Marrakesh, I mean, that call to prayer, it was so filled with devotional love. I looked forward to it. And I would do my yoga practice to the call to prayer. It sounded like Omar Farouk, the person who was singing, was so filled with their love for the omnipresent, the divine, loving wisdom of existence. But this local chap, I don't know that he's ever had a direct experience of the divine, because the timbre of his voice, bless him, sounds like he's calling in sheep. And it has become such a bugbear that I got up too hurriedly in too much haste to run and grab my earbuds to try and block him out so I could keep focusing on my task at hand, that I stubbed my toe so badly. Half my foot is bruised and it was a bad break. First time I've ever broken a bone. So out of pocket at a local private hospital, it cost me over $1,500 Australian. Yes, I'm insured, but I'm still lodging the claim, simply to x-ray and bandage the toe with a makeshift splint and a supportive cast. So this came the day after I'd had a healing of timelines for my own personal growth. And so in that healing, I saw me having my, DNA all hardwired up to the unity consciousness of the grid. So, of course, what was not in unity consciousness came up to be healed, i.e., my righteous anger at the organized patriarchal religions that suppressed the wisdom traditions of the goddess tradition that was here previously. So, what is the gift in that? Well, it's understanding that for me to prepare for this solar event that shifts us all in an instant from 3D hell into fourth dimensional loving acceptance of what is, in preparation for our shift then into the fifth dimension of the Aquarian age. No, we're not in it yet. This is the end game of the Piscean age for sure that we're seeing playing out right now. There is no doubt. You will know when we're in the Aquarian age. The sky will look different. There will be more light. So we're now preparing for that. We have to prepare our light bodies. And I spoke about how to do that physically in the last video, but today I'm going to speak about how we can do that psychologically. And that is looking at where we are holding righteous superiority to another group of people. So for you, if you're a right-wing supporter, you might be judging those who are left-wing. If you're a left-wing supporter, you might be judging those who are supposedly right-wing. Or you might be, a vegan who's judging carnivores, or a carnivore who's judging vegans. You might be queer and judging the straights. You might be straight judging the queers. You might be white judging the blacks. You might be black judging the whites. You might be pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian. None of it is actually helping. Okay? We all have a nemesis, a fight within that we need to personally address. That is how we can respond to the global crisis that is unfolding as alchemists rather than activists. Because activism only creates a greater divide. It's like putting the fuel of petrol onto an already inflammatory situation. So the best thing we can do, as the Buddhists say, is to create peace within, or as Gandhi said, be the change we want to see in the world. And while, I've done talks around the world for the last 3 years about how to respond to our global crisis as alchemists rather than activists, I'm still a work in progress with my broken toe. Yeah, we are all trying to master this lesson simultaneously. And with that message I got with the dawn this morning were the words from the Joni Mitchell song written in 1970, the year I was born, when those Aquarian cusp energies were strongest on the planet. The song is called Message of Love, and the chorus, the lyrics are, we are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to find our way back to the garden. And the garden is, of course, Eden. We live on a beautiful garden planet, Gaia. She is a living being. And in the new earth, she will not be carved up into nations and fought over. She will not be sold, apportioned off by real estate agents. We will all live freely wherever our heart feels to be on the grid. And we will each assume a custodianship for her with loving care, on the understanding that we and her are one. We are the land, as the Maori chant in their haka, and the land is us. There is no division, there is no separation. So I spoke in the last video about us being stardust, us being plasma, and how important it is for us to engage actively with the light as we approach this solar event by doing sun eating at dawn or dusk each day, and by doing that which expands our light, that which gives us joy, such as devotional practices like chanting or Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga or singing gospel. It doesn't matter how you get it, but whatever expands your heart and fills your cell with more light, more love. That's all you have to do to prepare. So what we're experiencing right now is the Day of Atonement, or at oneness. For us to be at one with each other, we need to be at one with ourselves. So the preparatory work we need to do is integration. Integration of the shadow and the light within. And this is what the ancient tantrikas would assist the people with, the ancient mystics that would midwife the people through transitions, whether that's life transitions, whether that's through the dark night of, dark moon before the new moon with the women in the moon lodge each month, something that I've done for nearly 28 years. So the women were the ones that would midwife people through change, because We get put through a shamanic death and rebirth 13 times a year with our menstrual cycle. And the women who have graduated from that, the menopausal women in Paleolithic and Neolithic times, were the leaders of the tribes. And this is what perimenopause prepares us to do. And that's the subject of my next book and the retreats that I'm running in September to harness the portal of the eclipse. So you can find out more about that. I'll put links below in the description if you want to join me. Those of you who are women in your 40s and 50s, this is a time you'll notice that ascension symptoms and perimenopause symptoms are identical. There's a reason for that. The word peri means supernatural in the Persian mythology. So, you know, the medicalization of all of our rites of passage undermines our evolutionary process. So I'm very passionate about reclaiming that. So if you want to find out more, you can check out my retreats via the links below. There is an early bird special, which this is the last week to get it. And yeah, would love you to join me. There are limited places. So if you do want to join, if you feel called, act upon that sooner rather than later. But getting back to this judgment day, there is no external authority that is going to stand in judgment of us. That's it. None. We are our own judge and juror. And the more that we don't take account with ourselves, don't do that act of atonement with ourselves, the more we stand in judgment of others. And it is now becoming so pronounced, so polarized, with everybody judging everybody else, that we are literally at the knife's edge. We are at that point where we could annihilate ourselves. We could destroy ourselves in our righteous superiority and judgment of those we see as our opposite. So this is a time for us to exercise mercy and forgiveness. This is what Yeshua taught. He laid the framework, the groundwork for us to make this shift. He knew this was coming 2,000 years ago. So everything he seeded was for this shift. And this is why a lot of people are turning to Jesus. They're intuitively going, he knew what this was about. Unfortunately, his teachings were so distorted by the powers that be for political reasons that, you know, what he actually taught and what is in the doctrines are very, very different. But I mentioned in the last video about the film The Dark Crystal by Jim Henson of the Muppets, who was, if you will, a spiritual father figure for those of us in Generation X, those of us now in midlife and menopause, which is the stage, the life stage of the magi, the sacred magician, the alchemist, and the mage, the feminine form of that. So those of us who incarnated between 1961 to 1981, we are the 13th generation, Generation X, the generation of the crossroads. And when we were in puberty, we had AIDS, which was, you know, a man-made virus. It's been proven. And it was part of a depopulation agenda. There was a CIA whistleblower who lifted the lid on that. And so when we, you know, came to our second blood rite of the breaking of the hymen, which is us becoming sexually awakened, we didn't just have an ego death, as would be the natural initiation. We faced the very real possibility of a physical death because of the AIDS virus. So this created the largest spike in suicides. Yeah, it was a time when those in Generation X, the indigo generation, who are, you know, like fierce rainbow warriors, that wave of souls that Dolores Cannon speaks of that came in to turn the ship around. And so that dissipated in our mother, father, or king, queen stage. But now that we're in midlife, we're seeing a huge spike in suicides for Generation X again. So I want to specifically put a call out to those of you in midlife finding it tough. Know that you're not alone, and that midlife is a huge initiation. There's huge astrological transits that take us down, and it's a metamorphosis, but we need support, we need mentoring, and we need community, a community of those that are also going through that in order to make that transition so that we don't opt out. And I've had a couple of friends take their lives in the last couple of years that were in that midlife phase. So I'm very passionate about serving as a midwife for those that are currently in midlife at the moment. So again, check out the retreats. It's not just a pitch. Like you know, I know that I've got insights to help. The last 12 years of perimenopause and the last 15 years of midlife has really shifted so much within me that I've found so much gold in that. My name means goddess of gold, that I have these insights that I have to get out or I will combust. So, yeah, I'm looking to speak on podcasts, anyone that'll have me on to discuss this. So, this is a time when, we need to be accountable for our own inner teenager. Why? Well, the solar plexus, which is the rational self, the lower mental body, is the 14 to 21-year-old inside of us. So no matter what chronological age we are, we all have within us an inner child, a middle child, and this is the chakra system. They correspond to the chakras. So the 14 to 21-year-old is the part of us that wants to make good, wants to be the prodigal son or daughter, wants to be liked, wants to be a success. So we need to be compassionate towards this part of us and that part in others. Now, those who are rationally or solar plexus dominant are often in academia. Why? Well, those that are perpetual scholars are those who are seeking to know more, to know everything. On the understanding, they equate knowledge with power. So this is, when we're very hierarchical and we're seeking to climb the ladder, whether that's in the halls of academia or the corporate ladder, but we're seeking power. And that's what the solar plexus is about. We are seeking status. We are seeking success in order to feel empowered. And when that's the case, we align ourselves with those who we think have the power, such as those who are towards the top of the pyramid, those that we see as having, perks and success. So the more in a patriarchal culture that we indoctrinate our mind through getting more and more letters after our name, more and more degrees, and following the learned publications or the learned news channels such as The Guardian or the BBC. I've got a twitch in my eye starting. How interesting. It can be a sign of iron deficiency, but it feels more like it's what I'm speaking about. And so it's often those that are most invested in the system because they've climbed that pyramid of power in order to gain certain perks. In other words, if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, you have more power socially, you have more status, you have more income. So you're not going to want to give that up in acknowledging that the system is broken. The system is corrupt. The system is not there to support the people, but it's a system gone mad. Yeah, it's a system that doesn't operate on common sense. So those who are less educated, those who haven't done lots of tertiary education, and those who have broken away and sought life as their teacher, these are the ones who are questioning the status quo, who are calling out the shadow of the system. And we're going to see that become a louder and louder cacophony of voices, with the system coming down and a revolution. But unlike other political revolutions, this is going to be an evolution, okay, a quantum shift that sees us all on the same page in the heart, bowing to the heart, knowing that love is the only teacher and that our wound is what humbles us. So a lot of people are dealing with illness at the moment, or injury, or mental illness. Your wound is your teacher. So instead of berating your body and being at war with your body, yeah, this is a time to bow to the intelligence of the body. Just like Marianne Williamson had her AIDS patients in the 80s write a daily journal to the illness, and they saw their relationship with the illness shift from one of victimhood to one of gratitude for all the life changes that the illness had catalyzed in their life. This is a time when a lot of people are facing off with their greatest fears. It's like having the Pisces North Node, it brings up for us our greatest fear. So we're dueling, if you will, with the third eye. Okay, Pisces corresponds to the third eye. And this is us manifesting our worst nightmare, our worst fears, our worries, until we take back our power and understand that we are all the mage or the magi in training, the alchemist, and that we can harness our thoughts, that everything in our waking world is a manifestation of our subconscious beliefs. So I would love to help you back to the garden. If anyone out there is listening to this and struggling, you are welcome to reach out and book a session with me. And I would love to help you in navigating your own personal nemesis, because that is the role of the dark goddess in these times. It's to serve as midwives, to assist the collective, to not just embrace their shadow, but bow to the shadow as teacher, so that the light and the shadow are integrated as one. And I'm very excited that I've been guided to create a wonderful new project that brings together the wisdom keepers that are emissaries of the dark goddess, other women that are walking the path of high priestess, who I'm going to have public panel conversations with to help midwife the collective through these times. So stay tuned for that. I've sent out invitations on the new moon to the first panelists for the first 13 episodes. And so far, we've had only positive responses, and I'm excited to start recording those panel conversations and share them with you, because you're not alone. We are not alone. We're all in this together. In fact, these dark times are what is going to bring us all together. So we bless it all. We bless the process, and we bless the dark goddess, who is so misunderstood. Yeah, it is the dark times that call for the wisdom of the dark goddess. And who is she? Well, she is the one who has dared to humble her ego, to descend, to see her own shadow. And in doing that, can see the shadow clearly in others and in the world around her. So she has X-ray vision. So those of us in Gen X that have X-ray vision to help heal the world soul, the anima mundi, by integrating all of our collective shadow into oneness in this time of atonement. Watch this space. And if you'd like to suggest someone to be a panelist, you can email me at admin at themoonwoman.com. And likewise, if you'd like to have a private session with me, you can email me at admin@themoonwoman.com. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. So you're not alone. And this is the beginning of a very exciting new dawn of a wonderful age of light. But first, we must pass through the dark and we must love all of it. So thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, you have my blessing to share it far and wide with loved ones and on your socials. And yeah, ciao for now from Morocco.